So Celeste Brooks, we're so delighted to have you join us for this talk. And her talk is titled The Final Act, Exploring the 29th Degree of the Zodiac. Celeste Brooks, if you don't know or you're not on social media, she's a OPA certified astrologer, life coach, and intuitive. She offers a range of readings, classes, workshops, coaching, and specializes in chart rectification for unknown birth times. Celeste hosts the Celestial Insights podcast and is known for like her engaging Instagram lives. Again, if you're not on Instagram, I highly recommend you giving her a follow. She's a board member of OPA, faculty at Kepler College. She lectures internationally and brings 25 plus years of corporate leadership experience to her work. And you can find out more about her on her website, astrologybyceleste.com. So tonight's topic, just a little bio that you might have already seen. We're going to be exploring the 29th degree of the zodiac. Much attention is given to the planetary ingresses, but the 29th degree, the anaretic degree, is where the true crescendo occurs. This potent and often urgent final degree of each sign carries the weight of closure, karmic lessons, and the pressure to integrate unfinished business. So in this talk, we're going to sort of explore the 29th degree across the 12 zodiac signs and covering the themes and the challenges and the opportunities that emerge as planets prepare to transition into new territory. Whether it's a luminary or a personal planet or an outer planet, moving through the final degree can activate a powerful emotional, spiritual, or even, worldly reckoning. And we're going to recognize, hopefully, through this talk, what that threshold is in our own chart and in the charts of others. Welcome, Celeste. I'm going to give you the platform now. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, Meg and Christine. It's a delight to be here and to be able to share my work with you. Okay, let me share my presentation. Okay, we're going to explore the 29th degree, the final act. Before the new begins, the old must complete. You already introduced me, but I will say I'm a Taurus sun, Aries moon, and Cancer rising. I like to make things practical as a Taurus. The Aries moon, we have to have some fun while we're doing it, and the Cancer rising, it comes in with the intuitive part of me, and I like to hold space for people in a consultative environment. I always start with a quote: "The snake that cannot shed its skin perishes." It's a quote by Nietzsche. So let's start with what is the 29th degree? We know it's also called the anaretic degree. It's a degree of completion, the final degree of any sign. And it's like the energy when it goes through zero, it's newness. About 15, it's really comfortable. But as it gets to that last degree, there's a sense of urgency. Everything that sign has within it has wants to express the energy before it changes signs. So it's intense, it's urgent, but there's also themes of exhaustion with this energy. The crisis, something must end before something else can begin. It's not comfortable. It's a pressure point of a door about to open. I like to think about it as a pressurized containment because the two signs have very different atmospheres. Each sign is in rebellion to the one before it and after it. So there's very different energies. There always is a different mode, element, and polarity with the signs on each side. So I envision an airlock. In my corporate career, I was in biotech, and I would go into these airlocked rooms all the time for manufacturing suites and you had to put on your whole suit and everything. It's a big production. So, but there's a door that seals behind you, and you've got to let it close before you can move through the door in front of you. So you're in the in between, and that pressurized differential is total. And if you have planets that are 29 degrees in your chart, you can put it in the chat if you feel like. I'm going to focus in on the what we see transiting or in people's charts, but in terms of their progression, solar arcs, or transits. But if you have one of these in your chart, it also is meaningful. I wonder if that's why I'm so fascinated by it, because my Jupiter's at 29 Libra in my fourth house, and there's a big story in my life about relationships and inheritance. And the fairness of it all. I got my grandparents' house and I have siblings. So, anyway, people will always have some kind of story and maybe even a repeated story in their life if they have the planet. It's karmic at 29 degrees in their chart. My Neptune is at 2959 retrograde in my chart in my fifth house. And yeah, anyway, like I was never like leaving Las Vegas or anything if you've seen that movie, but I have quit drinking because I said something that caused a friendship to go kablooey, and that was the end of my Chardonnay career. So anyway, so there's themes of decay. What was once potent begins to break down. The old form has run its course, and there are themes of completion. Decay is natural. Everything, the moon cycles is such a beautiful example of the growth and culmination of decay experience. The crisis is a peak of the pressure, and crisis does not mean bad. It means evolution is a must. Now, when we get to the 0 degree, there is this theme of emergence of the new sign. The new sign has arrived, but it's raw, unformed, it's nascent, nascent. And what was destroyed makes space for a creation. So the creation, maintenance, destruction phases that are natural, but it's a circle rather than a straight line. And why does this matter now? Why is this such a great time to be talking about these themes? Because Saturn and Neptune met at 0 Aries, the first degree of the zodiac, seeding this new 36-year cycle. And we are watching in real time how things happen with the movement from the 29th to the 0 degree. Now we're all the signs, all the outer planets are in their new signs, but we're still seeing the collapse of structures of our political, economic, and social systems being exhausted and cracking and dissolving. Every day it's something new. Um, the threshold's been crossed, but we're still not done. The new is nascent, especially because it's a 36-year cycle and we're like 2 months into it. So, can you grieve what's ending without clinging to it? Trust what's emerging without being able to see it. One of the big things I keep saying is walk by faith, not by sight, because I'm holding on to Barbeau's basket with my every ounce of my being to believe that a better world will be on the other side, not like a dystopian hellscape. So that's what I'm holding on to. So this is where astrology is most useful, to name the moment we're in rather than, I mean, I'm a predictive astrologer, but I'm focused more on, you know, staying present these days with what's going on. Okay, so let's get into each of the signs. And these are metaphors, and my intent is to help you, especially when you have a client coming to you. They've got a story, and sometimes you see something, especially in their secondary progressions or their solar arcs that's approaching or at this 29th degree. It can be very helpful for you to be able to articulate to them what may be coming up based on them going towards this transition, what to keep their eyes open for. And for Aries to Taurus, we're talking about battle fatigue. You've been running the marathon so long that your legs are starting to give out. and this may not be a real marathon, but think about it. What could it be? And when you cross the finish line, someone hands you water and a snack. This is the arrival. You slow down, but you don't stop, but you start to pause. I cannot tell you how wonderful it's been to have my progressed moon. I'm an Aries moon. Well, first of all, having the lunar, that lunar return was really good to have like a reset of my moon. And then, but like, I have a moon in the 10th house, working, working, working. I've Saturn on my sun, da 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 da. My progressed moon went into Taurus. Oh my God, I am ready to slow down. Take a break, bring some more rest into my life. It's like it was a big transition. Now, you also keep in mind what's going on transiting. I had to get past that square to transiting Pluto in Aquarius, and it correlated with my sweet little doggy Debo dying. But that also gave me all this additional freedom and rest in my life after he passed on because he had had cancer and been sick, and there was a lot. Yeah. Let me keep to the time because I get talking and I get going. Okay. So battle fatigue can be one of the things you're seeing. Now, these also have like real world symbologies, evacuation orders. There can be minutes to decide what matters, and you just start grabbing things unless you're have planned ahead for something like this. But when you arrive at the shelter, which is a stable place, whether it's a hotel, a shelter, a friend's house, whatever, you have a new understanding what matters to you. When you start looking at what you grabbed in this emergency, you realize what you really value, a Taurus theme. So, the example of astrology in action was January 6, 2021, the storming of the US Capitol, when Mars was at 29 degrees and 58 minutes of Aries. President Trump finally told the rioters to go home. Congress reconvened when Mars was at 0.2 minutes of Taurus at 8 p.m. this evening. And one of the things that was really striking about there was this guy who was dressed up, and he looked like a bull. Oh, the mystical shaman or something. And like we really saw that symbology of Aries and Taurus in the experience. So from Taurus to Gemini, that 29 Taurus, barren soil, you have exhausted it. The routine feels so boring. The couch is like becomes uncomfortable. Safe feels suffocating, comfort confining. So what do? You start thinking, you pick up the phone, send a text, do something that sends your energy out to someone else. Maybe you update your resume because you want a new job, or find a gym because you got on the scale and it's like, oh my God, you almost passed out. Or if you're single and you're ready to mingle, you download the dating app. Yeah. Also, it could be you can't afford it. Like Taurus is an earth sign. There's a desire for material things at 29 degrees, which Carol Rushman in her Art of Predictive Astrology book, she calls it the bankruptcy degree. You see this purse, jacket, whatever, golf club that you just really want to have, and your mind starts going into overdrive. So at the end of the signs, you'll start being pulled towards the new energy. So with Gemini, your mind can start thinking, making justifications, seeing the duality of everything. The mental gymnastics are Olympic level, and you can think of every justification in the book. You can turn yourself into a pretzel, why you should have this thing, how you can pay for it. Oh, I'll just pay $20 a month for 2,250 years, and that'll be just great. Or you, at the end, you could also decide, I'm not going to get it because it doesn't make sense. Now, on May 20th of this year, the sun crossed that threshold, and the sun speaks to the authority or individuals who are leaders. And billionaire Jeff Bezos, talk about, Taurus energy, so much money. I don't even know what to say about it. Anyway, he tells Andrew Ross Sorkin, this interviewer, that doubling his taxes won't help a teacher in Queens for the Squawk Box. And it was a long-ranging interview, but it was that comment that got a lot of attention. And if you've been paying attention to what's going on in the U.S., Mamdani in New York is getting a lot of, he's like showing, this is my perspective, he's showing what can really be done, opening a grocery store for the communities and all these social programs that are being launched in this time of Pluto in Aquarius. But this interview was recorded at his Blue Origin facility, and the sun was at 29 degrees of Taurus, approaching, going into Gemini and meeting Uranus a degree apart. And 1 week later, the New Glenn rocket exploded on the launch pad right after ignition. It really felt like that one degree between at that time. Yeah, it was kind of like a prelude to what was going to happen. And look at this moon Jupiter. Interesting. Talking about, because apparently he did make some comments as well about how the society could be helped, but people really latched on to that comment about him paying more taxes won't be beneficial. Now, when we get to Gemini, 29 Gemini, I'm calling this blown fuse. Like you've thought about it over and over and over and over in your mind. You've debated it, talked it to death, to yourself. If you have a Gemini moon, to your, ha, my sister has a Gemini moon. Oh my God, everything. I got to hear everything about her thought processes when she's making a decision. I'm going to tell a story on her because you'll never see this. But thank God for Chat GPT. She talks to Chat GPT about all sorts of things, which is not the wisest idea, but it has it has been really good for our relationship, so I don't have to hear every single thought going to her head through her head. Anyway, I love my sister, but are you going to have the child, buy the house, grow the whatever? And then with Cancer, quietly, without an announcement, you just get that gut feeling when you know what you're supposed to do. Now, whether you do it or not is another story, but you get that gut feeling and you know the right way forward. It could also be your social calendar is bursting, especially like if you have your progress moons at 29 Gemini. Maybe you've been ripping and running in the streets, socializing here, there, and everywhere. And just at some point, maybe even mid conversation, you realize this all feels so empty. And maybe the next week you make excuses, you cancel all your weekend plans, and instead you just Netflix and chill yourself on the couch, snuggling up with the pillows, maybe your pet or whoever. Yes. Now, this 29 Gemini can really often be associated with winds. And I think Mars Uranus is going to be a big story. I mean, the news is going to be bananas, but like Tornado Alley is what I'm getting for Mars Uranus. But anyway, this was back in 2023 where 27 tornadoes just blew through the South, and Mars was standing at the threshold when it started, and it entered Cancer the next day. And there was so much devastation. A whole town was destroyed. This Rolling Rock, Mississippi. Very, very, very sad. So from 29 Cancer to 0 Leo, I'm calling this the water breaks. So that which was safe, protected, um, gestating, matures, and it's ready to emerge. The golden child is born can be 0 Leo. You've got this thing, you've been created, and ta-da, here it is. Now, it also could be like winning the lotto. Carol Rushman calls 29 Cancer the millionaire's degree. And I've seen that in a lot of charts as well, when people either have money or come into money. Could be through marriage or whatever, if it's on the descendant or the ruler of the descendant. But that can be a thing. I love her book because there are all these little aphorisms. I hope I'm saying that right, about her experiences in her 30-year career being an astrologer. It reads almost like a novel. So if you haven't checked out The Art of Predictive Astrology, it's a great book. Yeah. Now, it could also be winning the lotto, or you get the family inheritance. So if you're ready to step into the light and face the audience, can be something that comes up, or you could splurge on something if you won the lotto. What is the first thing you buy if you win the lotto, or you donate? What do you do with it? Leo, it really shows people who you really are by how you react when this happens. It can also be, you think about the mother, the guilt tripping mother who just everything, oh, I was in labor for this long and this, that, and the other. I sacrificed this, that, and the other. The cataloging of each sacrifice that was made by this person no longer moves you anymore. And you stop performing just for them at Zero Leo. I mean, you already went to architecture school, even though you didn't want to, because your dad said you had to do this, you couldn't, blah blah blah, whatever. You stop performing for their approval, and you're ready to start finding your own joy in some way, or authentically express yourself. So this is another hurricane story where, I mean, not another hurricane, another weather story where Hurricane Emily reached category 5 on the date Saturn in Pisces crossed the threshold from 29 Cancer to 0 Leo, and Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, and Mexico were heavily impacted. It was just horrible. I remember this, even though it was so long ago. There was so much destruction. There is that, energy of the destroyer with this degree. So now when we go from 29 Leo to Virgo, I'm calling this burnt out. Like the performance has exhausted you. The spotlight causes a sunburn, and you're just tired of the drama. And when you go to 0 Virgo, you can think about how it's time to hermit, retreat, regroup, and rethink what really lights you up. Maybe you thought you wanted to be the star on the stage performing all the time, and then realize, it's not suiting me anymore. The president of the United States has a 29 Leo rising, and you can really see the performance piece of that. He does actually look pretty exhausted these days, but it's more related to his health rather than him being tired of attention. But yeah, he's a great example of that 29 Leo degree. It could also be the heart attack, literally. When I see stuff with, in people's charts, I, keep in mind the signs. And 29 degrees is the heart attack. I'm sure we're going to be hearing about this when a bunch of heart attacks when we have the solar eclipse, South Node solar eclipse in Leo, August 12th, as well as on July 26th. I'm so interested in seeing how this is going to show up when the nodes switch on the same day Saturn stations retrograde. So we'll see what causes a heart attack. It doesn't also have to be a literal heart attack. It could be like, oh my God, it's something that shocks you so much that the rush to the AR could be like rushing to the computer to look up and find the details about whatever happened, something big and dramatic. But just say if somebody had a heart attack, then the doctor visits start coming up, and you have to clean out your pantry from your potato chips and your cookies and your this and that and whatever. New routines are required if you want to live. And, you just have to do the Virgo thing. So President Biden's decision to send cluster munitions to Ukraine became an international controversy, drawing criticism from several of the US allies because these cluster bombs can be very dangerous to civilians and not explode. And yeah, it was very controversial. And he was a president that kind of stayed behind the scenes. He's a Scorpio with the 12th house sun, but he went on Fareed Zakaria's CNN show to defend his decision on July 9th, 2023, as Mars stood at that threshold. It entered Virgo the next day, and then he went off to some NATO summit, and I'm sure he got a lot of criticism, and there was a lot of talk about picking apart his decision. So, this is just the chart of the interview. And it's interesting. You can see Venus and Mars and Leo. He's on this show trying to get the attention of the allies and get them to see his leadership and why he had to defend himself, Mars and Leo. King Kunks this Pluto at 29 Capricorn. There's like this crisis and decay in the government and a tradition of like from World War II. We're not going to do this again, risk destroying the whole world. And here we are again. Anyway, and you can see Saturn and Pisces directly on the descendant. And he has a Saturn in Gemini. So this was a Saturn square for him. And his Uranus is at 2 degrees of Gemini. So he did this shocking thing. That's what he's talking about. And yeah, trying to reverse people's opinions. And Uranus can bring reversals. Now, when we move from 29 Virgo into Libra, I'm calling this analysis paralysis. You've refined it, critiqued it, rewrote it, fixed it endlessly, dotted every I, crossed every T. It is as good as it gets. Yeah, it is, because you just can't look at it, the document, another minute, or shave down another piece off the statue. Think about Michelangelo. When was David complete? Did it cause him, was it so hard for him not to touch it one more time or not? I don't know. But you show it to someone with 0 Libra, their eyes light up. It was never meant to stay in the workshop. It needed to be seen and brought out so that other people could interact with your piece of your creation. Now, hopefully their eyes light up because it looks great, not that it looks terrible. But anyway, if your kid comes home from school with their creation, maybe you're just saying it looks great because that's what you're supposed to do. But anyway, you could also think about, does she love me? Does she love me not? Like just asking, like agitating it, stressed out, on and on and on in your head. Is this relationship real? Are they really caring about blah, 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 blah? Well, maybe ask the question at some point, not on the second date, but eventually, and you find out the answer. She loves me, or maybe she loves me not. But now you know in Libra where the relationship stands. So it also can be, you can think about you're getting ready to file a case. You gather every piece of evidence. You sort, organize, categorize, put it in all your files and blah, 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 blah. And then you're ready to 0 Libra, file the case with the courthouse. Now, Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez, the Bennifer saga that goes on and on. Supposedly, they are entertaining each other again. They've been seen in public again. But anyway, Bennifer 2.0 ended on April 24th of 2024, when Ben's progressed moon, the day it moved to 29 Virgo. So we know it would stay at that degree for another month approximately, But think about 29 Virgo, that crisis that he was going on and on in his head, or maybe even blah, 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 talking to people about why this marriage didn't work, blah, blah, blah. And anyway, his progressed moon was besieged at at 2 Libra, conjunct his Pluto, between Pluto and Mars, when she filed for divorce. And she filed for divorce on the same day of their 2-year anniversary of this big, elaborate Georgia wedding. And so this is Ben Affleck's natal chart in the center, the progressions in the next wheel, and the outer wheel is the transits. So we see here his at noon on this day, April 24th of 2024, his progressed moon is at 28 degrees and 59 minutes of Virgo. And that day it switches to the 29th degree of crisis and decay. And they're separated. The lawyers and have to start, getting ready for whatever's next. Also could be like gathering all the themes and things, and they were probably already moved out, but anyway, you get the picture. And you can see look at the progressed moon applying to his Pluto and Libra, and he's got a natal Venus square Pluto, Venus on his ascendant. He's very handsome and sexy, but also his relationships take on this big intensity, or at least this one. Anyway, and then his moon will be besieged between Pluto and Mars when she files for divorce, which is like a gut punch because it was on their anniversary. And you can see this story relates to the collective as Jupiter, Uranus, they're separating, but they met in Taurus. A shock, although it was kind of apparent this marriage wasn't going to work. But anyway, a shocking split between two wealthy, glamorous celebrities. And it's also, you see this Mars Neptune, the fairy tale balloon burst. Yeah. And then I'm sure the news was going back through their relationship, and like back in the day in like 2002 or whatever, he gave her this big, I just remember this big like diamond that was either pink or yellow, and it was like showing that all off was something. Yeah. But anyway, his Venus was also in Virgo, progressed Venus in Virgo at 0 degrees. When they got married, it was at 28 Leo, this big, dramatic party. And he was having a progressed balsamic moon phase where the moon was emptying out the rest of its light. It's time to set back, release everything that's no longer needed. So when you go from 29 Libra to 0 Scorpio, I'm calling that the facade dissolves. So keeping up with appearances and people pleasing reaches an endpoint. People are often having a crisis around some kind of relationship or legal things, or could even be, I've seen people having like health issues related to kidneys. So when you see Libra, I've seen more than a couple of times people having something going on with their kidneys. So, but this is a time where, like, for whatever reason, the mask comes off, because, Libra, sometimes people with strong Libra energy can go along, go along, go along. Oh, wherever you want to go to dinner, blah, 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 blah. And then, boom, they snap at some point, and the facade dissolves, and their true desires surface, and they stop being palatable and start being real. Can also be the time where you're in the courtroom. Everybody's waiting for the judge's decision. The defendant learns, will they have a debt to society or the plaintiff? People are talking about, is this fair? Is this balanced? If you have a debt at 0 Scorpio, you have to pay it. So when the president of the US, Donald Trump's progressed moon was at 29 degrees of Libra when he had his second case with E. Jean Carroll, and it moved to 0 Scorpio the next day. And in the case, he was told he had to pay her something like $85 million. So that was such a big shift. And it was in his third house, a progressed moon in his third house, moving. But for this, I use this example. Prince Harry's memoir project was announced on July 21st, 2021, when his progressed sun was at 29 Libra. Can you imagine all his one-on-one relationships, calling him on the phone? What are you going to talk about? Am I going to be in this book? Bop, 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 bop. Spare was released after the ingress to 0 Scorpio. And talk about burning some bridges. He told all kinds of stories and calling it Spare. Yeah. Anyway, you can see here, this is his natal chart in the inside, his progressions, middle wheel, transits, outer wheel. You see it right here at 29 Libra, about to hit his 0 Pluto in Scorpio. And his progressed moon had moved right into 0 Libra in the 8th house. And this is one of the reasons I love using a quadrant based system. I use Placidus. I should have put that on here. It's all the houses are Placidus because, okay, he's writing for this publishing. He's getting ready to publish a 9th house topic, but his progressed moon is in the 8th house. So he's delving in the cave, pulling out all this information and things and talking to whatever the ghostwriter, whoever that was, about, or writing himself, I don't know, all these deep, dark themes from his entire life to share. And his progressed moon was squaring, separating from Neptune, applying to a square with Jupiter. All these royal secrets getting ready to come out. And there's this theme of power dynamics, an heir and a spare, the value of each of them. He was also in a balsamic moon phase with the moon emptying the rest of his light. And then he had a new moon in Scorpio. So talk about his identity and then his emotional body having a big changes, big shifts. Yeah. When the progress moves from, and so many times when people, especially the progressed moon moves into Scorpio, there can be like a big story of them having to release and let go of something like really serious. Sometimes it's a death. Something is going to die. Is it a relationship? Is it a person? Is it a way of them being? Um, of course, we have to be careful dialoguing about that kind of stuff with them because, we don't want to cause anybody to spend all their time worrying about something they have no control over if it's just like a person's going to die. But that is when I see that progressed moon in Scorpio come in, that's a big noticeable shift for most people. Sometimes people don't necessarily, they're like, oh, well, maybe it takes them a while to tease out what actually happened that relates to the symbology. But with Scorpio, it's typically pretty apparent because there's such a big difference between Libra and Scorpio energy. Now, Scorpio to Sagittarius, I love when I see people come in where something's at the end of Scorpio because Sagittarius is such a lighter energy. They give them something to look forward to. I call this the reckoning. Now, one of the ways this could show up is like the paranoia is eating you alive. You think he or she is cheating or spending money or doing something. and you can't stop yourself anymore. You start the snooping. Now, when you snoop, you risk getting caught. Do you find the truth? Now, what are you going to do about it? And is the betrayal that of their privacy, or were they really betraying you? What if they were doing nothing? Could be a big themes with that. Yeah, and then you realize you did something at zero Sagittarius. It was kind of reckless. It could be even wreck a relationship. Now, 29 Scorpio is also has associations. Carol Rushman also calls that the bankruptcy degree. It's that axis of, Taurus and Scorpio have to do with material possessions versus shared assets and debts and all of that. But 29 Scorpio can be like when you're paying off the last of your debt. I've seen this in people's charts with Venus at 29 Scorpio, literally paying off the end of their debts and having a target. And I can give them, I recently gave a client the date of when their Venus enters Sagittarius. This might be when you are done or near done with it, or this can be a goal to pay it off by then. And it really related to what their goal was and showed them that they were on the right track and could have success. So the weight is gone and freedom is yours. And this debt can be financial, it can be karmic, it can be emotional. Like if you've been depressed at some point, sometimes depression like just breaks for whatever reason, and the weight is gone, or at least it's starting to be gone. It's not gone immediately, but maybe you have a hopeful thought or something. And then freedom can be yours. You pick a new direction and go. Maybe you decide to go on a trip and that changes your whole mood or move. Yeah. So Kamala Harris went on Saturday Night Live with the moon on this threshold at 29 Scorpio. Mars was also at 29 Cancer. So opposite Pluto. So it was like the energy of her standing naked in front of the whole world doing this skit. It's Saturday Live is live. I see now you have it in England, a new version. Anyway, so some people are watching it. I mean, the United States is so polarized politically. Some people are watching it looking for her any flaw, like this the 29 Scorpio, the public watching it is scrutinizing every move, looking for something. Others holding their breath, hoping that she'll have success, hoping she'll soar like an eagle, a scorpionic theme. Now, the moon moves quickly, so zero Sagittarius with Saturday Night Live at the end. They have like everybody comes on stage and there's a celebration and it's a big hurrah and they have a cast party. So this is just the transits. Her natal chart on the inside, the transits on the outside. You see that Mars opposite Pluto in the second and eighth houses. The moon here, this was big in terms of Uranus on her Jupiter. Can really feel that. And that's her with Maya Rudolph, the actress that played her. One thing that's interesting, I don't typically look at the transiting ascendant or any of the angles, but I do find it interesting that the transiting ascendant at the time Saturday Night Live started was at 6 degrees of Leo, which is the north node of the United States. 6 Pluto is the south node, and Pluto is going to hit the south node multiple times in the coming years. We'll see how that shows up. My goodness. If you have a spare bedroom, let me know. I'm just kidding. Anyway, thankfully, my partner's from Uruguay, so I have an escape route. Anyway, 29 Sagittarius. I call that road weary. Like you've been traveling so much. You've been everywhere around the world and you can't find your baby, had every adventure, tried every food, whatever. The open road is now lonely and it's exhausting. And you decide to settle down, plant your flag somewhere, settle down. Discipline and routine can give you a new type of freedom. Maybe you settle down in a relationship you were reluctant to commit to forever and ever. Maybe you go from gig work to getting a routine job. Maybe you literally stop traveling the world after, college or something like that. Yeah. Now, Sagittarius is also overindulgence. 29 Sagittarius. It's, the drinking, the drugging, the playing the slot machines, whatever, started as a celebratory thing, but then it's a habit, and then it's costing you everything, whether it's your health, whether it's your money, whether it's your relationship. Well, that threshold, the consequences, you see them, they're right there, or they arrive when the doctor tells you you have diabetes or whatever, whatever. They arrive. And now it's time to hold yourself accountable, make changes, add discipline into your routines or whatever. Like put on your big girl, big boy pants and make some changes. Now, this was so in line with this energy, the New Year's Eve celebration that turned tragic in Crans, Montana, Switzerland. Investigators think sparklers attached to champagne bottles ignited the soundproof material in the ceiling. And Sagittarius is the candle, the sparklers, the mutable fire. I mean, this is so on the nose for the astrology. It's unbelievable. It happened on January 1st, the day that Mercury crossed the threshold, the day that Mercury got to 29 degrees of Sagittarius in the sign of its detriment. Very, very sad thing. So many people died and were injured. But yeah, also a celebration out of control can be Sagittarius energy. Now, with the switch from 29 Capricorn to Aquarius, 29 Capricorn, you've kept up with the Joneses, maybe even surpassed them. You've climbed the corporate ladder or whatever ladder, achieved all your goals or almost all your goals, and you're near the top or at the top. You look around and it's empty. Like, what was all of this for? I this is like a personal experience of mine with my corporate career. I spent over 25 years in corporate, did very well, but oh my God, it was like, what does this even matter or mean anymore? Started when Uranus went into Taurus. I'm a Taurus. And by the time it got to my son Saturn, I said, I'm out of here. I'm taking the risk. I cannot be stifled like this anymore. I have to do something with meaning. And Saturn was transiting. I was in a let court, my closing Saturn square, Saturn in Aquarius, and Jupiter in Aquarius. Jupiter giving me that, oh, you can do this. You can change your career at 50. You can ditch the corporate grind, and it's an act of revolution. Yeah, you want to build something that matters, whether maybe you go to a nonprofit, maybe, I don't know, maybe you just retire, maybe whatever, whatever, but that, like, trying to achieve, like, your goals change. Government oppression can peak with this. The people have had enough and something snaps. And ooh, we're seeing this in Albania where the people are in the streets about the Kushners taking over their private island that is a protected habitat and um, wanting to build some kind of resort there. Yeah, the people rise up. This revolution isn't chaos. It's coordination. The people are coming together to use their collective voice to make change. You can think about Nepal when they took down their government and elected a new prime minister by, I think it was discord. That was like, oh my God, incredible. The tear down leads to a rebuild. I should look into what's going on in Nepal now. Is it stabilizing? Are things going well with this? But that was so inspiring to so many people how this Gen Z protest took changed everything. And oh my God, this summer is going to be the summer of revolution. Hold on to your hat. Anyway, President Vladimir Putin approved a change to Russia's nuclear doctrine. Oh, my apologies. Should have put this was the day or the day before for the last time in 2024. Pluto at 29 degrees moved into 0 degrees of Aquarius. And he said they're changing the nuclear doctrine, lowering the threshold so that they could use a nuclear response if they were attacked. So I'll fix this, put in the date. Sorry about that. And it's meant snaps there. Okay. Aquarius to Pisces, not like us. You can think about, and we're seeing it so much with all the people forming their different groups. And you may have been told that X group is not to be trusted, perhaps even hated. And there's so many stories where people meet someone of that different group, whether it's at work, at college, at a party, whatever, and they understand their common humanity. They make you laugh. You just connect. They show up for each other. You meet their family, and they're so warm and welcoming, or something like that. So the ideology that you've been told your whole life dissolves through genuine friendship. Or TMI, too much information, so many connections and signals. The grid is overloaded and something's about to blow. Now, the grid can be in your mind, like if you're like obsessing over something. I get the image of what was that movie called with Russell Crowe? It was so good, where he played that scientist who was a genius, but oh my God, I can't think of it. He was writing on that board all the time. A Beautiful Mind. Yes. And eventually he had his mind snapped and he had some kind of breakdown. But anyway, the power goes out. Now there's no data, there's no noise, there's just silence. Is this silence a reprieve or is it chaos? Bad Bunny's Super Bowl halftime show was on February 28th. February 8th of this year. Now, Venus was at 28 Aquarius during the halftime show, but the next day, when it arrived at the threshold of 29 Aquarius, about to go into Pisces, there were all these intense discussions about the performance. Some people absolutely loved it. Some people absolutely hated it. The pros and cons of identity, culture, and there was big talk about language because he performed in Spanish for the Super Bowl. Puerto Rico is a territory of the United States that speaks Spanish. Yeah, and representation, the positives and negatives of it. Yeah, the people of the MAGA political group in the US were apoplectic when they found out he was performing, and then had their own show with Kid Rock and some other performers because they were mad that he wasn't talking in English, and that he was who he was. Anyway, yeah, you can think about that. But it was, wow, I thought it was a spectacular show. And as Venus went into Pisces, we learned like the numbers were phenomenal. It was Kendrick Lamar still holds the record, but he was like number 4 most watched Super Bowl show ever. 29 Pisces. Last but not least, Pisces. This is the waste dump, the last degree of the last sign of the zodiac. The toxins have accumulated. The immune system starts to activate. This fever spikes. And as the arrival comes, it starts to break. You start sweating it all out. Whatever was poisoning you in the dark has been named and faced. And this is a metaphor for a lot of different things, like um, potentially the cult. You snap out of it. Also, like a relationship when you're being gaslighted into nonstop. You've been told not to believe your eyes and your ears. Oh, baby, baby. No, that's not the way it is. I never said that. No, you're not, you're imagining things. I didn't look at him or her like that. Blah, 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 blah. The fog that you've been steamrolled with is thick, but your intuition nags you. You know internally the truth. The arrival, you stop ignoring the deception and doubting yourself. You end things maybe and start anew. That 29 Pisces to Aries, such a big shift in energy, as we're all seeing as Neptune and Saturn went over that degree. In the US, Alex Preddy in Minnesota was shot by ICE agents on January 24th with Neptune at the threshold. It went into Aries for the last time on the 26th. It was 2 days before that, and this was one of my predictions that a mythic hero would rise, and he did. In terms of, and he was shot in the back, and he was trying to help a woman up when it happened. Bruce Springsteen wrote a hit called in a protest song called "The Streets of Minneapolis." In response, he wrote it on the day Preddy was shot. He recorded it the next day, and he released it January 28th worldwide, 2 days after Neptune entered Aries. And this is the chart of Preddy being shot. Look at the Pisces rising ruled by Neptune, or you could say Jupiter. Jupiter with the fifth house, inspiring this song from one of the most famous performers, a man of the people ever. And the Saturn Neptune conjunct in the first house. Yeah. Aries moon and the Mars Pluto really speaks to the energy of what was going on then. So that's it. And just letting you know, my proper care and feeding of the moon course, I'm teaching that. And if you're interested, you can check it out at astrologybyceleste.com. I go through everything about the moon, and you get a moon insights journal, and we have two sessions. You get pre-recorded lessons about all of this stuff, not just the zodiac sign, houses, and aspects, but also the natal zodiac phase you are born under. And that's starting, the first session is on Sunday. The trifecta, we every year, myself, Tiffany Herlick, and Sarah L. Harar, also known as Astro Auntie, do a yearly forecast. And this year we're coming together on June 30th to talk about what happened and forecast the rest of the year. If anybody is anybody going to UAC? If so, I am going to be talking about the call of the lunar nodes. If you are so inclined to come to my talk, I'd love to see you there, and please introduce yourself. And I doubt anyone here will be coming to my peer group in Oakland, California for OPA, but OPA is a wonderful organization. I'm a board member, the Organization of Professional Astrology, and consider it if you're interested. Okay, this is me. I'm everywhere at Astrology by Celeste. All the things. My latest obsession is threads. I'm growing my YouTube channel, trying to grow that. So if you are so interested, you can follow it at Astrology by Celeste. I do personal readings, coaching, all the things, mentoring. And yeah, you can also email me, Celeste at astrologybyceleste.com.
Thank you so much, Celeste. It was absolutely fascinating.